groovy.
Hey everybody, welcome back. Jim here with some more Famicom recommendations. Recently I have noticed quite a lot of people getting into collecting for the Famicom, which I think is a good move because there actually are a lot of really good Japan exclusive Famicom games, and for the most part it's actually a lot cheaper than collecting for the NES, so I wholeheartedly recommend collecting games for the Famicom. Anyway, let's get started. This first game, very good, by Namco. Great game in a classic series. It is Splatterhouse Wanpaku Graffiti. This is a game that a lot of Famicom collectors have on their radar, and that's for good reason, because aside from just being a game in a really beloved series, i.e. Splatterhouse, on its own, it's also just a really fun little platformer. You basically take the Splatterhouse license, which is typically a really gory and gruesome game series, and you shrink it down into kind of a cute little chibi 8-bit version of itself. It's always kind of made me think a lot about Halloween, like it's a Halloween game, because Rick kind of looks like a little kid in a Halloween costume, and you collect candy for health power-ups. I always thought it was, very cute and kind of cool that the game's designed that way, and on top of that, it is a fun platformer. It controls well, it's challenging without being too terribly frustrating. There are lots of enemies to hack away at with your axe or blow away with a shotgun on the occasions that you can pick one up. You can also increase your health with an experience system. You accumulate experience as you kill enemies, and there are lots of boss battles that are kind of parodies of various horror films. So you have a fight against Dracula that dances like Michael Jackson from Thriller. There's also like a bunch of aliens that pop out of a woman's chest, and they just continually keep coming out of there. There's also references to The Fly and to Poltergeist and to The Exorcist. So I think all that's really cool. Plus the graphics are nice. Again, a very cute 8-bit chibi version of Splatterhouse. The soundtrack is also pretty cool, has kind of, again, like a Halloweenish sound, creepy little chip tune. So I like this game a lot. Definitely recommend it for fans of the series. If you look online, loose carts aren't terribly expensive. I think they're about $30, maybe between 30 and 40 on average. And I think, that's not too terribly bad considering how high prices for NES and Famicom games can get these days. So definitely Splatterhouse Wanpaku Graffiti, Wanpaku Graffiti, definitely a game I'd recommend picking up. Splatterhouse Wanpaku Graffiti, awesome little game, highly recommended for fans of 8-bit platformers. Very good. Next up, excellent game by Irem. This is Kaiketsu Yanchamaru 2. And this is another solid 8-bit platformer, and it's really too bad that this didn't get a Western release. And if it looks familiar to you, that's because it's the sequel to a game called Kid Nikki Radical Ninja in the States, and that's why it baffles me that this did not get a release outside of Japan, because in pretty much every way possible in terms of graphics, sound, and gameplay, this game is superior to the original. So yes, a big shame for platformer fans that this did not get an international release. It is a very solid playing platformer. You go around killing enemies and collecting all kinds of different power-ups that have lots of different effects. Some of them even turn you into various animals that make it easier to get through one stage or another. So gameplay-wise, it's really fun. Lots of different boss battles, lots of different kinds of enemies. Plenty of challenging platforming to take on. So solid in the gameplay department. Graphics are really good as well. Nice big character sprites. Very colorful game. All the stages are themed differently. So there's a horror themed stage. There's one stage that's actually snack themed. It's called Snack Land. So there are different snacks and all kinds of stuff littering the stage itself, but it's also kind of vaguely Christmas themed, which is odd, but either way, it's still a good looking game. The soundtrack is good too. So all around, this is a solid game by Irem. They usually made really good stuff back in the 80s and 90s, things like Metal Storm and Mr. Helly and R-Type, and just it's a shame that some of their really good titles did not get Western releases. And this is a game, again, if you go looking for it online, I wouldn't expect that you'd pay more than 20, maybe $30 for a loose cart. So Again, if you're in the market for really good 8-bit platformers, this one would be a really good one to go with. I'd highly recommend it. Kaiketsu Yanchamaru 2, another really good platformer I'd highly recommend picking up and playing. Pretty damn good. Next up, a game that most people know is really awesome, but I want to go ahead and throw it out there anyway. It is Akumajou Special Boku Dracula-kun. And like I said, this is a game that pretty much anybody who's familiar with the Famicom will be aware of. It's KidRacula. It's awesome. It's basically kind of a cutesy, super deformed version of a Castlevania game. And are you sensing a theme here? Yes, Jim likes his cutesy, super deformed 8-bit platforming genre, if that even is a genre. But yes, as little KidRacula, you go jumping around, killing enemies with fireballs, and defeating cool bosses, and after clearing each stage, you get some kind of new special ability, like new power shots, the ability to turn into a bat and fly around for a brief while, and when you kill enemies with power shots, they leave behind coins, that after you clear a stage, you can spend the coins on bonus stages, and there are actually a whole bunch of different bonus games that are a lot of fun. And just overall, a really fun, well-made game in the gameplay department. Not any two stages are exactly alike. One thing of note is, in one of the stages, the boss is actually the Statue of Liberty that asks you questions, so it's like a quiz show. So if you can't read the Japanese, that's kind of a trial and error kind of thing. But still, very fun game, very good graphics, really nice, colorful. The little chibi, super deformed character design is something I always like, and the character sprites are actually really big and fairly detailed for a Famicom game. Looks nice. The soundtrack is excellent, really upbeat, catchy music that I like a lot. So overall, this is a really fantastic game. Another one that it's not too expensive. Again, loose carts kind of like in the $30 range or so. So if you like platformers of this style, I would say the two previous ones I mentioned were good. This one's better than those. This is the one I would go with first, KidRacula. It's really, really good. Akumajou Special, Boku Dracula-kun, KidRacula, fantastic 8-bit platformer. It's a personal favorite of mine and highly recommended. Next up, this one is kind of cheating, but I don't care because it's my show and I can do whatever the hell I want. This is Ryukenden 3. And this is not technically a Japan exclusive game because it was released in North America as Ninja Gaiden 3, but for my money, Ryukenden 3 is definitely the superior game because typically when people talk about Ninja Gaiden 3 in the States, they take note of certain elements that were altered to make the game more difficult. So enemies deal double damage than they do in the Famicom version. You have limited continues, whereas you have infinite continues in Ryukenden 3, just like you would in the first couple of games. Also, the Famicom version features a password system that was omitted from the North American release. So all around, I would say all of the issues that people have with the NES version, those are not present in Ryukenden 3, so I think that makes it worth owning. Also, it's worth taking into consideration it's a much cheaper game. I would say at about $30 to $40, somewhere in that range. For a loose cart, it's about half the price of the NES version, and on top of that, it's still the exact same really awesome gameplay, amazing graphics, outstanding soundtrack. This might be my favorite of the 8-bit trilogy. It's a really great game, and again, like I said, it's definitely worth owning the Famicom version with all of the complaints addressed and with a much lower price tag. Ryukenden 3 is one I would really recommend to fans of the 8-bit Ninja Gaiden series. Ryukenden 3, definitely superior to its Western counterpart in my opinion. Definitely worth picking up if you are a Ninja Gaiden fan. And finally, I think for every video I do covering the Famicom, I have to have at least one Kunio-kun game thrown into the mix, and this is Nekketsu Kakutou Densetsu. And this game is just awesome. It's essentially a 2-on-2 fighting game that controls more like an 8-bit beat-em-up, like River City Ransom, for example, except you do have a wider array of attacks at your disposal. Lots of different kinds of throws and attacks on enemies who are on the ground, and you can do team attacks with your partner, and there are weapons lying around, and there will be stage hazards like spikes and electrified walls and landmines. Really cool stuff. Plus, you can play either 2 players, or if you have a multi-tap, you can play 4 players in this game, and you can do teams or every man for himself. It's a lot of fun, and it's a Technos Japan game in the Kunio-kun series, so you know the graphics are going to be good. You're going to get the same kind of designs that you get in River City Ransom, Crash and the Boys Street Challenge, Super Dodgeball. It's no secret that this is one of my favorite series of games on the Famicom and NES, and a big part of that is the presentation, the graphics, the music, the continuing story, the using the same characters, and it becomes kind of endearing. So you'll see all of that stuff in this game if you're familiar with this series already. Going to be a lot of stuff to like in terms of the graphics, the sound, the characters, the story, and the gameplay is really fun, especially if you can play 4 players. This would be a great game to play with friends. It's really awesome. Also, not a terribly expensive game if you pick it up loose, that is. Another one that's in that $30 range typically, maybe even less than that if you go looking on eBay. I'd say it's well worth it, especially if you can get the multiplayer going. This game is a lot of fun. Nekketsu, Kakutou, Densetsu, awesome game. Highly recommend picking up and playing this one. And that's it. 5 more import Famicom game recommendations. Thanks for watching. Let me know down in the comments what some of your favorite Famicom games are and what are some imports you'd really like to get your hands on. I'd like to know. And until next time, thanks for watching, everybody. Take care. Goodbye.